Yeah, yourself.
Yeah, not bad, not bad. Thanks for your time, man. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Good to talk to people about the new album. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, well, I just listened to the new album. I had a preview copy of it, and fantastic as always. You guys always deliver the goods. How are you guys feeling about it at the moment?
We're super stoked because across the board, like it's positive, nothing but positive. So we're very happy. We never know. Like we do these records and put everything we got into them, but
Mm.
when we hear the feedback from the media, the fans, like the overall our friends, and we're just like, wow, cool, good, nothing but good so far.
Yeah, no, it's obviously a sort of a weird time, I guess, because you never really know how people are going to respond to it. But I mean, you guys have always sort of
Yeah,
had positive feedback for all your albums throughout your career, right? I mean, it's always been a pretty consistent sort of thing for Cataclysm.
yeah, it's been good, but sometimes you release something and you're so sure about it,
Mm.
and then people are, and you get those comments like, "Oh, last album was better," or sounded better like this, or "We like this, like that better," and then like a few years later, they're like, "No, the album was great." Like sometimes it takes a while to get the right perception for certain songs or certain sounds, I guess. But this one so far, it seems like right off the bat, it looks like it's going to be a hit for us.
Just on that sort of subject, because obviously you
Yeah,
guys have been around for quite a number of years now, and so you're at that sort of stage where a lot of bands kind of run into that problem of, well, the fans only like the older material, they don't like the later stuff. Do you sort of come across that problem as well?
yeah, precisely. I mean, like we have such a long career, and it's like it's almost like you can divide it into different eras of the band,
Hmm.
with I guess through all the different kind of little style we got throughout our careers, and like it seems like a lot of fans that starts listening to us at a certain point in time gets hung up on that period of time, and they like those albums better, and for them we'll never do something as good as those albums,
Hmm.
whether it was like the early stuff, like then the 2000s, the late 2000s, the 2010s, and so on. And then some people are like, no, this is the best album, like Shadows and Dust 2002 best album, or it's really a different uh, opinions on our music. But for us, we approach it as like we try to give our 200%. We try to be innovative and try to uh, refresh the sound, and always come up with new ideas and new textures and new things to play with in our music. And I think this is one thing that, at least for myself, keeps me excited about playing music, because I feel if we were that band that would write the same record every single time, I would question the relevancy of like being in the band and playing music. So
Yeah.
for me, it's like I love trying new things and incorporate new things into the band sound, and also I do like keeping touch with the roots and try to they were like not forget where we come from, and keep those elements and push them somewhere else. Or
Mm.
sometimes it's pushing them a bit outside of the box, and I like that personally, like outside of our comfort zone, and try new things, and like push our limits, test our limits, as well as musicians.
Yeah. So speaking of new ideas and innovations and stuff like that, what did you sort of try and do on this latest record then?
Well, the first thing that's different was we have a new drummer, and he's 10 years younger than us.
Hmm.
So, and he's a super good drummer. He brought a lot of new techniques. So it I guess it allowed us to push ourselves further as musicians, because we didn't have that hang up of the drummer not being able to follow the ideas we had. Like he plays whatever we want him to play. Like he's
Hmm.
super good. So so it's like there's no limit there, and that's one thing. And then the second thing is, uh, it's been two albums now. I tried, like last record, I tried a 7 string guitar for the first time in my life, and I thought it was awesome. And it kind of opened up a new world for me, to play with that new range of frequencies and notes. And on this new album, that's the second album I do with the 7 string. and now I'm much more used to it, and I know more what I can do with it. So I experienced even more on this one, and it's kind of brought like a lot of balls to the sound and the song. So I'm that's the one thing we played with, and then those faster tempos because of the drummers. He has no issues playing like really super fast. So we're like, okay, let's raise up the tempo and see how fast we can do it.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, Kataklysm are kind of known for, obviously you're known as the Northern Hyperblast kind of band, so it kind of fits in quite well. But I mean, like, obviously, as time goes on, I guess it can get more difficult, or maybe you can disagree with this. It can get more difficult to come up with fresh and creative ideas. Do you kind of run into that problem at all, or do you think you've got so much ideas that it just kind of spills out of you these days?
It's kind of it's like the creativity process. It's kind of like sometimes there's nothing coming out. Like I'll sit with my guitar or with the guys and I'll try to write something, and I'll sit there for hours and it's totally useless. And then I'll come back 2 days later and open up my studio and plug my guitar in, and then I have a million ideas and I don't know what to do with it. Like it could go in so many directions, and my brain's all wired. So I guess it depends on the moment, but I'm still I find myself to be super creative still, and I like what I'm coming up with, and I like the directions I'm bringing the music, or I'm pushing the music into, and I find like I could say it's like it's depending on the days. Like I have good and bad days when
Yeah.
it comes to creativity, but at the same time, for me, writing music it's my favorite part of the whole process. I'm not one of those guys that, I mean, I like the live shows and all that, but for me it's not my the thing that drives me about music. For me it's the creative process and the writing and the recording and all that.
Yeah. So obviously you sort of wrote and recorded this album during, I guess, some of the worst times in the global scale with the COVID stuff and all that. But also, I guess well, like a lot of bands, it kind of allows people to sort of get really creative and sort of hone in on certain things. Did you find that you kind of really gave this album a little bit more attention compared to previous albums because of that extra time?
Well, yeah, I mean, for me as a musician and as a producer, like when the extra time like when the whole craziness started, I wasn't sure kind of what to do with myself because I like to keep busy, and there's so many things that was on the table just kind of fell out and wasn't like got canceled or pushed later and all that. And then I got stuck with all that time. But then a month or two later, I started getting a lot of calls because obviously all the bands were recording and working on music. And then I never worked that hard in my entire life. Like I had so many bands lined up to do stuff, so I worked pretty much like the whole pandemic nonstop, and that album was part of the process. And now, to be honest, like I had some time, but it was kind of spontaneous as well. Like I didn't hold anything back. I started recording, and then as soon as I got songs structure pretty well written, I sent it to the guys, and they sent me feedback, and then we kind of started working a bit more together at that point. But it was fairly spontaneous, natural, and I guess everyone else in the band was kind of feeling a little bit of that anger and maybe a bit repressed and stuck inside their houses and all that. So
Yeah.
the idea they sent to me was I felt a lot of anger, and that was good. It was I guess we capitalize on that, and I use a lot of those ideas to put within the songs. And I don't know. For me, it was spontaneous and a good process, and maybe spent a good 3 months on writing those songs, and they came out great. I was super happy with it.
And obviously the David versus Goliath concept that sort of surrounds this album with the cover and all that kind of stuff, and obviously that album title Goliath, was that sort of a product of what was going on around the world, or was it just something that you just sort of felt you needed to kind of, the whole sort of us versus them kind of concept? Was that sort of because of some other influences, or because of what was happening
Yeah,
around the world?
Well, obviously, what's happening around the world makes you question a lot of things,
Mm.
and same with like my singer really got into a lot of the deeper kind of stuff going on, and like, and also we felt the world is changing, things are changing, and we speak to a lot of people around the world, and they all feel that something's off. We don't quite know what, but it's off and it's weird. And in the music industry as well, and all that. And then we thought, like, man, we're like we're really are the small guy against the big guy, and that's what we wanted to represent in our music and push that message forward with this album. So at least we get a little bit of a voice as an artist. So that's something that was important to us, and especially Mauricio with his ideas and his lyrics. So came up with a concept. I said it's a great concept for a metal record. It's metal, super badass, and also it was really well depicted by Illerant Cantor, the artist. We wanted to represent this vision of the record with like a real painting, not like a computer AI art kind of stuff. So he did everything by hand. I think it looks awesome and really it's really well depicted. But yeah, to come back to your question, I think like a lot of it went with because of everything going on right now. You start questioning things, and then you end up going down that rabbit hole, and you discover a whole lot of stuff. And of course, there's a bunch of things that are far-fetched, crazy, and wrong. But there's a lot of things in there that make sense. And when you start paying attention, you ask the questions, it's pretty crazy. And then you realize that the whole world can stop. You don't think it can, but it actually can stop it. It did, and you're like, wow. So it's things that you need to ask yourself and look into for yourself. And I think a lot of the metal fans are people that question things, that want to accept the reality for what it is. Like they'll look deeper into things, and I think it was a perfect subject to tackle on this record.
Yeah, for sure. Because of all that stuff that's happened over the last couple of years, do you find yourself kind of appreciating Kataklysm, being in the band, being a musician? Do you kind of find that you appreciate that a bit more now than compared to previously, or?
Well, absolutely, because you get kind of stuck into that cycle where you go on tour, you write music, you go on tour, you write music, and it's your life. And you obviously you love your life, but you don't stop to question yourself, like, hey, like, what if it's all hands? What if something happens and the whole world changes and you can't do this anymore, and all that, and then not being able to fully do it for X amount of years, like these past few years, it makes you realize and enjoy it even that much more. I remember the first time we flew back to Europe for a festival, and that was even before people were really allowed to travel, but we just went anyways, and we played it, and we got to Switzerland, and we walk on stage, and we're like, wow, it's such a good feeling after all that. And then we kept accepting offers as much as we could, and we got tour offers, and even before it was legit to tour, we just went out there and tour and did it anyways. And we never really feared the lockdown or feared the disease, but we just went ahead and with the attitude of like, well, it's better not to stop and keep doing what you love. And then I told myself, if I get sick, I get sick. Or actually I got COVID like way early in the process when they didn't know what it was, and I got sick for 3 weeks, and I knew I could survive it, and I knew that the people around me could survive it. So my attitude was more like, well, if I get it again, I know my body can fight it. So I'll just go out there and keep playing music and enjoying my life, because at that point we didn't know how long it would last or what other things could happen. So
yeah, exactly. So speaking of the touring side of things, I guess you must have a lot of plans to tour on the back of the new album. Is Australia part of that plan at all? Do you know?
we would love to come back. It's been a while, and so far we have some offers, but we're not sure of the timing, so we're looking at that. But we do have a lot of touring plans, and so far we're talking to the Europeans right now, and they have a plan for us, and same with the American agency. So if we can fit Australia in there, like, we would love to go. And last time was amazing. We played 5 shows, and most of them were like really good turnouts and crazy energy. So
Yeah.
hopefully we can make it work again. But I think we will, but I don't know when or how or like yet. It's I guess too early in the process, but
Yeah. Well, fair enough. We'll love to
yeah.
have you back. And I've seen you guys a couple of times, and it's always a fun show. So we'd love to have you back in Australia.
Thank you.
Congratulations on the new album. Fantastic stuff as always. And thanks for your time, man. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.